For today's video, I'll be sharing my Harlequin Rasbora care guide. These are fantastic little fish, and I honestly believe that they are seriously underrated in the aquarium hobby. They have a bold yet peaceful temperament which makes them great for a wide range of different aquarium setups, especially community tanks that seem to be very popular right now. And on top of that, they're usually easy to find in aquarium shops, and they're usually quite cheap and easy to buy. So I want to start with their coloration because things are changing with Harlequin Rasboras. I personally keep the regular Harlequin Rasbora, known for its beautiful orange and pink coloration on the body and its distinctive black wedge near the tail. This is easily the most common variety of Harlequin Rasbora you'll find in aquarium shops right now, and it's a great option as they've been quite hardy for me. But there are two captive bred variations that are becoming more and more popular in the aquarium hobby. The first and less common, at least in my area, is the golden Harlequin Rasbora. As you can see in the video clip, these have been line bred to enhance the golden tones in the fish, and while it does look okay, I do think it needs a bit more work to really bring out those gold hues, and I still prefer the regular Harlequin. The second is the black Harlequin Rasbora, which has a deeper, darker coloration. This one is widely available in my area now, and 3 local shops sell it, but I still do prefer the classic version of the Harlequins, but this black variety definitely has some appeal, especially for the right setup with a nice white background to contrast its colours. One thing to note is that Harlequin Rasboras do usually lose a lot of their colour during the shipping process if you order online. So don't be alarmed if your new fish arrive looking really pale. Mine did the same, and over the course of around a week or 2 they quickly start to colour up, and multiple friends have had the same experience with their Harlequins too. So moving on, and I want to talk about water parameters for Harlequin Rasboras, as they tend to prefer softer water, but as long as your water isn't extremely hard, they should be fine. In terms of pH level, they're generally comfortable anywhere from down at 5.0 up to 7.5. Now it is important to note that the lower end of that pH scale is usually in their natural habitat or specialist blackwater setups, and most aquariums won't be anywhere near that. Personally, I keep mine at a pH of 6.4, and they've been thriving since I put them in this tank. When it comes to water hardness, the usual recommendation is anywhere between 1 and 12 dGA. That said, I do know some people who are successfully keeping Harlequin Rasboras in slightly harder water without issue. Mine live in water with a general hardness of 4 dGH, and they are perfectly healthy. Temperature guidelines can vary a lot depending on the specific source, but in general a safe range for Harlequin Rasboras is between 21 and 28 degrees Celsius or 70 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. I've personally kept my Harlequins at various temperature ranges within that without any problems, and they consistently remain active and happy. But, like with most fish, stability is key, so try to maintain consistent water parameters and avoid any big swings in your tank which can stress them out. Now moving on to tank setup, and most sources, including Seriously Fish that I use for a lot of my own research, suggest a minimum aquarium footprint of 60 by 30 centimeters, which usually works out at around 54 litres or 14 US gallons. However, in my opinion, I do think that is on the small side, even for a small group of Harlequin Rasboras. So I'd recommend trying to find yourself a 75 litre or 20 US gallon tank if possible, because my Harlequins at least can be surprisingly active at times, especially if they are shoaling around or displaying their breeding behaviour. I keep my Harlequins in a 160 litre or 40 US gallon tank, and when they are being more energetic they definitely make full use of the length of the tank. The standard recommendation for Harlequin Rasboras is to keep them in groups of at least 6, but if you can, I do suggest you try and get at least 10 if possible. These are easily one of the more socially complex fish that I keep, and having them in a larger group lets you see their natural behaviour of maintaining their hierarchy and their shoaling. I know not everyone's interested in that kind of thing, but I do just find it interesting how the dominant males maintain the structure of the group. Harlequins are upper level swimmers, meaning that they tend to stay in the top half of the water column in your tank. This will usually give you a lot of freedom to place hardscape or plants or anything else in the low portions of the aquarium without really interfering with their natural behaviour. That said, I really don't think plants are as important for Harlequin Rasboras as they are for some other species. I don't remember ever seeing my Harlequins hiding in the plants, and it's very rare that they get even close to them. They are definitely a more confident fish species that enjoy swimming in the open water. This is why Harlequin Rasboras are such a popular option in minimalist aquascapes like an Iwagumi layout, because even though there's very little cover in that style of tank, the Harlequin Rasboras still usually swim around in a relatively normal way. But if you're keeping your Harlequins in a community tank like I do, you do need to make sure you consider the needs of all the other species you will be keeping. So moving on to diet, and in my experience, Harlequin Rasboras have been very easy to feed. I currently use Fluval Bug Bites Light Blue Label and Hikari Micro Pellets as the staple for my Harlequins diet, but I've also had success with NT Labs Nano Tropical and Aquarion Flakes to some extent, but I would guess they do well with any decent fish food. For treats, I like to add defrosted bloodworm and frozen Daphnia once or twice a week, and I absolutely love these, especially the Daphnia. Thanks to their bold and confident nature, Harlequin Rasboras are usually the first to the food in the tank when I add it, making sure they get their fair share before any of the other species even get a chance to eat. Due to this, I've actually had to start dropping some food towards the plant cover just to make sure my honey gouramis and tetras get their share, because the frantic feeding of the Harlequins and the rapid movement does seem to keep them away. As I mentioned earlier, Harlequin Rasboras generally stick to the upper levels of the tank, and unlike some of my fish, they really don't dive down to scavenge from the substrate, so once the food sinks through their level, it's rare that they're going to go down and get it. But in all honesty, in my experience at least, this really isn't a problem, because they are so confident at getting on that food. As soon as you eat it, they will happily get their fill before the food has a chance to sink. Now moving on to tank mates, and in all honesty, I really do think that this is one of the biggest reasons Harlequin Rasboras are so popular in the hobby. These guys are very peaceful, easygoing fish that will fit well into the majority of community tank setups. In my own tank, I keep my Harlequins with neon tetras, cardinal tetras, corydoras, chili rasboras, honey gourami, a Siamese algae eater, some cherry shrimp, some Armano shrimp, and a couple of nerite snails, all without issue. I really do think that Harlequin Rasboras can easily be paired with the majority of community-friendly species in the hobby without issue. Now, the males will occasionally spar to maintain their breeding hierarchy, and during the breeding season their activity levels definitely increase, and it does seem to spook my timid fish like my tetras. So if you are planning to keep them with shy or skittish species, I'd recommend adding some plant cover or hiding spots just to give them somewhere to retreat to. Other than that though, I've really had no problems with my Harlequin Rasboras, and they've been a great addition to my community tank setup. I do want to quickly touch on schooling or shoaling behaviour, as my Harlequin Rasboras do shoal around the tank, often on a regular basis, but it does seem to be random. I really have no idea what causes them to do this. It just seems like they decide to shoal around and form in a group, and they'll just swim around the tank, and then all of a sudden they'll stop just as quickly as they started. So just like a lot of other freshwater fish, I really wouldn't recommend Harlequin Rasboras if you are specifically looking for something that will consistently display shoaling behaviour, because it's just so unpredictable, and while they do it multiple times a day, it usually lasts for a minute or two at most. So moving on to health issues, unfortunately Harlequin Rasboras have been very easy to keep in my experience, at least the regular Harlequin Rasboras with the regular coloration rather than the gold or black varieties. Unlike some other popular species that can suffer from health problems due to poor genetic diversity and captive breeding, Harlequins seem to avoid most of the more common problems. That said, I did have a stretch last year for around 3 months where I lost one Harlequin Rasbora every month. There was no visible signs of infection on the fish, and the rest of the Harlequin Rasboras have been fine ever since, and it's been maybe 6 months since I had the issue, and on top of that, none of the other species in the tank had any problems at all. So I am chalking that up to more of a coincidence rather than a specific issue, because before that and since that I haven't had any issues with them, and I'm just putting it down to one of those things. Outside of that though, they've been extremely hardy and easy to keep, making them a great option for beginners looking for a reliable, low maintenance fish. But I do think it's important to mention that Harlequin Rasboras can develop white lips if they get stressed. When I first saw this in my own fish, I thought it was some type of mouth fungus taking hold, but the discoloration faded after about a week of getting them once they settled into their tank, and I've never seen it since. So if you do notice white lips on your Harlequin Rasboras when you first add them to the tank, try not to panic, it's probably just a stress response and not a disease. Finally, I want to touch on breeding, but this really isn't a big part of the hobby for me. As far as I can tell though, Harlequin Rasboras seem pretty easy to breed. To be clear, they are definitely not up there with something like guppies or Medaka, but considering I put no effort at all into encouraging them to breed, they are constantly at it. My Harlequins at least seem to breed on a regular basis, and unfortunately I haven't managed to get a clip of the females flipping themselves upside down to deposit eggs on the undersides of the leaves, but I have seen it a fair few times now. As I covered earlier, I keep my Harlequins in a 40-gallon community tank, so there's plenty of hungry mouths in here looking for an easy meal, and I do think a lot of the tank mates eat the baby fry. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end. Thanks for watching. I hope it's been helpful, because Harlequin Rasboras really are a great fish and I do think they're underrated, and good luck with keeping your Harlequins in your tank.